From training camp.
You guys are fired up and ready to go to work.
To the preseason. Through the playoffs. And into the offseason.
To be able to get the best players, it's a critical time for us.
It's always Colts season. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen.
Head above water. That's where the Colts are as they exit the month of September. They are a 2-2 football team. You can't lose 2 of 3 at home, especially with this upcoming road stretch. And honestly, I think it's a big AFC win, potentially late in the season. I know it's early to think about, a head-to-head tiebreaker in your back pocket, but who knows? Hell, if the playoffs started today, the Colts would be in it. So you've kept the preseason chatter on the table, and it was very important for the Colts to do that. And we'll talk about it all here. 27-24, Colts over the Steelers. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen. Eddie Garrison back with me. Eddie, good to see you.
Likewise. Did you have a good weekend?
I did.
It was probably a great weekend for you, right?
Say it again.
It was probably a great weekend for you, right? You got a big Notre Dame win on Saturday. Colts get another win on Sunday, and all is right in the Bowen household.
Yes, the weather, obviously, certainly ugly there, but yes.
The red season is finally over.
Very happy about a lot of those boxes that were checked here this weekend. And on today's podcast, again, we'll focus on what I liked and what I didn't like, and then get into some Twitter questions. As always, thanks for sending them in, and we'll save some of them for the Wednesday pod, as really this will be more the Wednesday focus, Eddie, but the most important, we always do this with the schedule. We do it in quarters. The most important quarter of the season is about to happen. 3 of 4 on the road, all 3 of your divisional games, all 3 of your road divisional games, I should say. So just what a massive stretch. 2-2 in September. If you would have said to us at the start of the year, well, it's going to be Stroud and Malik Willis and Caleb Williams and Justin Fields, you probably would have said 3-1. But again, 2-2, it is head above water. And now you need to be Michael Phelps, frankly, in the month of October, as it is such a big, big stretch. Just briefly, kind of overall thoughts in the game.
How was the crowd, by the way? I want to start there. The split was like 50-50 for Chicago, and it made me wonder what it would be like for Pittsburgh.
I don't know. I'm so bad at those numbers. I thought Chicago was like a 60-40 crowd, maybe not even 40. I thought it might have been not as much quantity, but I thought at times they were louder. Granted, they didn't have many reasons to cheer until the second half there. So, yeah, they just weigh those damn towels, and they're just so damn passionate, But yeah, I didn't think it was overwhelming, but I thought it was important that the Colts, and we'll get into this and what I like, set the tone. Just a sneaky play. I always like to do this, Eddie, out of the gate. Sneaky play. How about Rigoberto Sanchez's net punt of 59 yards with 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go?
Yep.
After his last punt, I think had gone net 12 yards.
Wow.
With that big return. Remember, Pittsburgh got that big return?
Yeah, that's right.
He did have, I thought it looked like a semi-shank at 1.2.
The one that he kicked out of bounds?
Yeah, it was like out of bounds at the 25. Sometimes you obviously want to coffin corner it, but, it hadn't been like the full Rigo day we're used to, and then he rips off that 59-yarder. I mean, what a huge, huge punt there when you needed it, and obviously the errant snap certainly helped there. But you ready to get into it? You got anything, just overall thoughts, or are you ready to dive in?
No, let's dive into it with what you liked. And it's my first time being able to do a like, didn't like order, because last week I was out. So let's start with the early tone. The Colts jump on the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-0. The run game was electric to start, and Jonathan Taylor was gashing him big, and it was a nice tone set with the first play of the game with that nice throw from Richardson to Pittman.
I thought you just set the tone early with your physicality. I thought you won the line of scrimmage up front offensively. I thought you were physical defensively, and that's what Pittsburgh does to you. Pittsburgh bullies. And by you, I don't mean the Colts. Pittsburgh bullies teams. And the Colts didn't allow them to set the bully tone early, and I thought that was just so big. And, you build a 3-score lead in the NFL. While it's not over, what you do is you force your opponent to be pretty much perfect the rest of the game. And Pittsburgh was close to being perfect the rest of the way, but still, one little errant snap all of a sudden can be the difference. And that's what you saw there. So, you build a 17-0 lead against a team that hadn't allowed more than 10 points all season. That's big time. And I know, it's almost like if the game was reversed, I think fans would have walked out of Lucas Oil Stadium feeling different. Like, if you were going to isolate each quarter, Eddie, Their fourth quarter was their worst quarter. So I get like fans are, pissed off about that, understandably. But it's like, guys, have you seen what Shane Steichen's done to Mike Tomlin the last 2 years? 57 points with Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco playing 7 of 8 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Hello? And again, the fourth quarter defense was lacking. By no means was that a perfect defensive effort at all. I'm not saying that. But in a day where your depth was really tested on that side of the ball, I thought you created enough timely playmaking from your defense. And again, I just thought you kind of set the tone early, which is so important. You got Pittsburgh off script. You got them needing to play left-handed, and that was huge. So getting off to a quick start. We had not seen that this year really at all. And, you didn't commit a turnover against that defense. We'll get specifically into the plan on TJ Watt, but oh my gosh, what a day by Shane Steichen and all the hands on deck for that effort. So building that lead, setting the tone early, getting off to a quick start, all of those things, Eddie, find me in that one.
What did you think of the start from Anthony Richardson? I know only 3 of 4 in terms of the passing numbers, and he played less than a full quarter, but what did you think of the start from Richardson?
Yeah, let's maybe go with like a Richardson segment, like after all this, because I don't know if it's like what I liked or what I didn't like, or I don't know if there's enough sample size, I guess, to answer it. But to answer your question briefly, very good, obviously. Certainly the first throw was I forget what Spiro Ditas actually said on the call, but I had a similar reaction in the press box. When he threw it, I'm like, oh boy. Because I could see Joey Porter like starting to come over a little bit there. Just the fact that you say Joey Porter and it's his son is just crazy. It easily could have been tipped, and then it's just Richardson can he can write checks that other guys can't with that throw to Pittman, and obviously the running ability. He had the one miss on the sideline that I guess we're a bit used to at this point, but all in all, I thought it was reminiscent of the Houston game last year, the Week 2 Houston game, with that start from Richardson there, and then again, let's save him for later.
Should the Colts ask CBS to never send Andrew Catalon not Andrew Catalon, but Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta again, because it was Week 4 last year. They were in Indianapolis for Colts Titans, and then Richardson gets hurt, and he's done for the year.
I hate to break it to you. I think you'll be seeing a lot of Spiro here upcoming. I think you've seen a lot of Spiro already in your life as a Colts consumer. So, get used to it would be my sad answer.
The reason why I wanted to start with your thoughts on how Richardson started is because Flacco comes in, and Flacco does a terrific job on the short notice. Of course, he doesn't get much practice time, if any, with the ones. 16 of 26, 168 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns. The stats don't really show how big he was if you didn't get to watch the entirety of the game.
I'm glad you said that, because it doesn't. If you read the box score, it doesn't give Flacco the credit he deserves. First off, let's go to the first drive he goes in. Obviously chaotic. Is he in, and then he's out, and then he goes back in. You remember the Bucs game last year? Baker Mayfield and Tampa drives right down the field against the Colts.
I do. Yeah.
Then Baker gets hurt.
Yeah.
I think it was Kyle Trask.
Yes.
They had to go in. And it is just peeing down your leg. It just looks awful. Flacco goes in there, throws a nice ball on target to Taylor, continues to stay ahead of the chains. They get into a third and goal. The backup quarterback wasn't preparing to play all week long. First snaps of the season, probably isn't going to go well. What happens? You find Josh Downs for a touchdown.
Yep.
And if you settle for a field goal there, well, the final score is 27-24. So you think 4 points made a difference?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what Flacco gives you. He just gives you the ability to, calm the waters. It's not crazy flashy. And then you look at the second half, the third down conversions. 3rd and 10 to Pittman. 3rd and 7 to Downs. 3rd and 10 to Ogletree, all in the same drive. Again, nothing from him was flashy, but it's just solid football.
Joe Cool.
3rd and longs. Joe Cool is a great way to describe it. He said after the game something effective like, yeah, you just see the guy and you hit him. That's what you do. I'm like, well, Joe, I don't know if you've watched your starter play the last few weeks, but it hasn't been that easy, man. I get what Flacco was saying, but
especially on his one incompletion of the game.
The Colts haven't had that this season. I thought the stat before the game, I'm not sure if CBS said this, but I thought the stat before the game was the Colts had, it was either 3 or 4 third down conversions all year via the pass. So through 3 games, I think it was 3 or 4. I believe Flacco had 6 yesterday.
Yeah.
And we're not talking 3rd and 3s where he's, a 5-yard gain. I mean,
What, he had 3 on the final drive, right?
Well, on that final touchdown drive, right? Or,
Was it
because
4?
Ogletree was the capper, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, he had downs on the first one. The first touchdown was on a 3rd and goal. Like, he just provides, Joe Cool's a perfect way to describe it. He chucked it down the field to Pierce. That was a really good play by that Pittsburgh DB, by the way. You see so many Pittsburgh DB, or you see so many DBs in general panic there. Dane Jackson did a nice job covering Pierce. But, like, that element will still be there. Again, wasn't perfect. You lose, obviously, a ton of mobility. You lose, pretty much all your multiplicity. If you look at Jonathan Taylor's rushing stats, we could probably get more into this Wednesday. It's such a stark contrast from Richardson in the game versus Flacco. So those are all things that you'll have to factor in. But, man, just the ability to provide that. Hitting open receivers, knowing where to go with the football. I mean, if you don't convert those 3rd downs there, again, it's a 17-10 football game. And, how does that react if Pittsburgh all of a sudden gets the ball back and now it's 17-all? That, to me, was just such a huge, huge moment from Flacco and the Colts there. So, big time by your veteran quarterback there. And a huge credit to Chris Bowden and Shane Steichen. Because, there are teams out there in the NFL that don't invest in their backup quarterback that significantly. I think it's important with a young QB to do that. And I think it's also important to do that when you have a quarterback that had the rookie season injury-wise that Anthony Richardson just did. And obviously it paid off yesterday. So, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, 80-some backup quarterbacks come into that game and they aren't able to hold what was it at the time? I guess it was technically only a 7-0 lead when he came in.
Yes.
Yeah, about to be 10-0, but at least 10-0. And then he converted to 14-0. So great work by Joe Flacco, and I think you described it well, Eddie. The stat sheet does not tell the full story.
Yeah, because as soon as he came into the game, the run game just pretty much wasn't there because
Taylor, I charted it last night. I think he had 15 carries the rest of the game, and I think 12 of them went for 3 yards or fewer.
Mm-hmm.
He had the 20-yarder late, but it was several negative runs. So again, that might be a conversation for Wednesday if you got to project Flacco into starting Week 5, but it's not perfect with him offensively, but still, to get thrown in the fire like that, it probably helped. He was playing against a team he's quite familiar with and all that. So, great work by Joseph Flacco with his kids in the building.
Yeah.
First game with the kids in the building, he said. And Big Ben in the building, yes.
I know this isn't on the rundown for the pod in terms of what you
By the way,
liked.
shout out to Big Ben. Great sport. Did you see the Ricky Bobby look-alike they did on the Jumbotron?
No, I did not.
Yeah,
I was not in attendance yesterday, so.
They put the picture of Ricky Bobby next to him, and Big Ben gave a little wave, so I thought that was a nice moment.
I know it's not in the rundown for what you liked here, but I want to throw in Josh Downs just because he was so big for them on what seemed like every 3rd down, it was first downs.
Yeah, and let's throw Pittman in there if you don't mind, because that's not a Pittman we're used to. We're not used to 6 for 113. 6 catches, 113 yards.
Yeah.
We're not used to that from Pittman of a 15, 20 chunk type of guy. He was that. And boy, I thought Downs just so timely. He had the nice put the foot in the ground. We had him on the show this morning. Maybe we'll throw that into Wednesday's pod. But you put the foot in the ground and broke a tackle there on the near sideline in front of the Colts bench. So Josh Downs looks pretty healthy. And you're 2-0 with Josh Downs this season.
That's right. That is right.
You think he matters?
Yeah. All right, we've hit on what you've liked from the offense. Let's transition now to the defense. If I told you going into the season when the Colts played the Steelers, TJ Watt would be held to just 2 tackles, you would say what?
You're lying. He got hurt.
And I didn't even add in the fact that Braden Smith only practiced 1 day last week.
1 day. Yeah, 1 day. I can't stress enough how just unbelievable of a job Braden Smith and company did on TJ Watt. Eddie, 2 assisted tackles, as you mentioned, no sacks, no quarterback hits. He hasn't had a game that quiet in 3 years.
Would that be the first time they played the Colts? Probably.
No, I remember he wrecked a game in 2019. The Colts had some backups playing. Will Holden maybe played right tackle in that game. If I'm going back as far, maybe that was 2020. I don't know. That all kind of blends together. Maybe 2019 was when Cameron Hayward injured Jacoby, taking Nelson into him. But just what a job he did on Watt. I mean, unbelievable. The tight end focus, the quarterback focus, the chipping, wideouts, running backs. On the Ogletree touchdown, he chips and then kind of delays his route a little bit. Flacco, great patience there to find him. So just a great job against a game wrecker. There are Hall of Fame talents in this league. There are first ballot Hall of Fame talents in this league. TJ Watt is one of them, and you did not let him wreck it. And that is a difficult task, but it's one you need to try and accomplish. And again, in a 3-point game where one little play can make a difference, that's one Watt strip sack. That's one, hey, on a 3rd and goal, you don't complete it to Josh Downs. It's a sack, and now Matt Gay's trotting out there for a field goal. So, unbelievable job. And, I think I have had deserved criticisms at time for Shane Steichen this season. Him, Jim Bob Cooter, excellent on the plan with TJ Watt. They committed to it. They employed it. They found that nice balance to where it was the proper attention but didn't hamstring you offensively. And sure enough, you scored 27 points against that defense. So great job against TJ Watt.
When these two teams laced it up in 2022 at Lucas Oil Stadium, Pittsburgh won 24-17. TJ Watt had 3 tackles in that game. Jonathan Taylor, 20 for 86. It's almost like the same exact game, but the outcome was reversed.
Yeah, I remember last year's matchup, Watt had a big first quarter and then was really quiet after that, though, against the Colts. So, again, he is such a special talent. Big time from the Colts and getting it done against them.
Let's pivot now to what you didn't like after covering what you did like. Let's start with the oil leaking late, as you put it. The defense in that fourth quarter pretty much felt like they went full prevent, didn't really feel the defensive line getting after the quarterback. I know that's something I highlighted last week that was a concern for me against Chicago, and certainly in the first 2 weeks of the season. It just feels like your defensive line hasn't been as disruptive in the passing game in those obvious passing situations in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and again, it was a battle of trench depth. The Colts were banged up on their D-line, and Pittsburgh were missing 3 starters coming into the game, and then a 4th went out early in that one. So, there was a little bit of an element of that, but I just thought it was too easy for Pittsburgh there late. It's one thing to you allow a scoring drive or 2, but I'm trying to look up right now. So those possessions there late, Eddie, they had those 3 straight touchdown drives, Pittsburgh.
Yep.
The drives were 256, 320, and 223. I mean, those are quick driving. You can't have that. That was too easy and allowed them to continue to stay in the game. And at that point, your offense was still scoring a little bit,
Yeah.
You had the touchdown to Ogletree. You did get that field goal before that final 3 and out. And let's just call it like it is. I mean, if that errant snap doesn't happen, are we talking about a 1-3 football team?
Who knows?
It's now, again, acknowledgement for the 17-0 lead, but you played with major fire there in the fourth quarter, and you needed to get that break. So as much as there was some timely playmaking, the ease of those 3 drives, I mean, those were big drives, and, it was a variety of things I thought that kind of hurt you. Fields making some plays. I thought Pickens had some individual plays that were pretty good. Najee Harris had the big catch and run where he ran over a couple Colt players there on that one. So I thought all of that kind of added up to you can't play with that much fire there late in that game. And, Justin Fields, I mean, it's got to be statistically one of the best games of his career, right? I mean, I know he had the fumble, but how many times has he thrown for 312 and ran for 55?
Yeah.
So those were obviously some big moments. I did think kind of a sneaky play there late after the chaos of the fumble. I thought Jalen Jones made a big play down the field. And again, wasn't perfect by any means for the Colts secondary, but they got Pickens. I think that was a one-on-one. And Jones did a nice job of not committing a penalty and making a play there. Again, if that goes the other way, who knows what happens.
Right. How about the run defense? We didn't really talk about that and what you did like. I know we're pivoting back a little bit.
Outside of Patterson, they were great.
Yeah.
Now again, Fields, brings that dual threat element, which we talked about on Wednesday's pod. It's a little unique for the Colts. You don't see that too often in the NFL. They won't see that really a ton coming up here. I guess
the RBs, non-Fields, had 20 carries for 67 yards. Fields had 10 for 55.
Yeah, and really, I mean, Harris they did great on 13 for 19.
Yep.
It was Patterson that had the 6 for 43, and then that Shampkin came in for Champlin, however the hell you say his name. He had 1 for 5 on that one. George Pickens is good at football, but I don't know what he was doing with that loose ball security.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Another big play though. Cross, I mean, just timely and to get on the recovery. You know, the Colts have had great fumble luck this year, and I do think some of it is effort. But I believe the Colts have lost 6 fumbles they fumbled 6 times and not lost a single one of them.
Really?
And I think they've forced 9 and maybe recovered 6 of them. I'd have to double check my math on that, but it's wild.
Last thing that you did not like, and this was a topic of conversation leading up to the season just because he was hurt and he didn't look well in the preseason, and you added in he didn't look well after that Baltimore game. Matt Gay missed another one from 50-plus. If you remove, Kevin, that 4-for-4 performance in Baltimore last year, since signing with the Colts, he is 4 of 11 from 50 or longer.
I thought his miss kind of started it all for Pittsburgh. You know, I thought that miss is just kind of like, oh boy, here you go. It's starting to kind of, boil a little bit here. It was another miss left. I feel like we should mention that. That's where all the misses have been. I think we can state here with Matt Gay. He's not sniffing the return on investment.
Nope.
So now the question becomes, what do you do? Are you going fake injury? Put him on IR? I don't think it's the craziest thought.
And then what happens if Schrader gets hurt?
Well, no. I mean, IR to return. I mean, 4 weeks on that. I mean, how many? Are you going to really get 2 kickers hurt in one season? I don't think they're going to do anything. I'd be a little surprised if they did anything. First off, it's a huge financial hit if you just outright cut him. And when Vinatieri's issues developed in 2019, he was missing short kicks. Matt Gay has not missed the short kicks yet. You have to note that. Now, in today's NFL, seemingly some of these 50-yard kicks are short. I mean, these guys are insane with how good they are as kicking. So the Colts have a long-distance kicking issue. There's no debate about that. They clearly do. But again, at the same time, I don't have great answers for what they should or will do. I don't know. Do you coach around it? Do you a little bit? It's just such a disappointment that, bless you, that you're paying them this amount of money and this is what you're getting there, from a long-distance standpoint there, especially when, again, around the league, so many guys are knocking those home seemingly. So, it could be very, very costly, and certainly it almost was to you yesterday, and it's a storyline that's not going away at all. I guess for what it's worth, you're going outdoors here for your next 2 road games. Who knows if that will impact anything there, but not good for Matt Gay right now.
Not at all. Unless you have anything else to add, would you like to get into Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
David will start this week's edition of Twitter questions. In the postgame interview with Anthony Richardson, he said that Shane Steichen sat him for the game when he tried to return. He said Steichen said to, quote, try not to mess up the team right now, end quote. Digging really deep into this, but any deep underlying meaning behind this? Or just your typical coach talk of, quote, you're not 100%, not worth it, get them next time?
I think I'll go there.
Which one? The second?
Yeah, just typical kind of coach talk of like, you're not 100%. We haven't talked Richardson yet, so we might as well just unload it all here.
Okay.
When he goes down, you don't typically see that many players react to motioning to the sideline to get the medical team on the field as quickly as they did. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Steelers even had one of their trainers run out there right away. So he's writhing in pain. How the hell do you not put him in the blue tent? That is he is in clear and obvious pain. He is your franchise quarterback that has been hurt on, I would say it's probably fair to say, many occasions at this point in his NFL career, considering the amount of playing time. That dude needs to be examined a lot and not just go back out there after 2 snaps.
I mean, he didn't want anything to do with the medical attention on the field. Once he got up, he ran off the field and ran away from them, and I think that was their sign of okay, I think he's good then.
And that's great. And he's also a professional athlete. He's supposed to be like that. You know, I mean, that's great. My kids want to eat treats 24/7. I'm not going to let them. Like, I mean, that's how you have to boil it down. I hate to be that harsh, but that's the reality of where you're at with him. So to me, I was pretty dumbfounded that he went back into the game that quickly. And then you run that play. I mean, people can call it a read option. That was a play set up for a QB run. That is a pulling Will Fries and Bernard Ryman for a QB run. That to me was also a bit head scratching on that end of it. You know, it's weird. Richardson ran out of the tunnel with his helmet on after he went in the tunnel.
Yeah.
So clearly he was not ruled out. You don't let guys run back on the field with their helmet on. So, and he wasn't ruled out initially. He was ruled questionable.
Well, I think Russell Wilson would do that.
Well, yes, face paint on as well for Russell Wilson on that end. So I do think it was an element of, you know, he comes up to Shane, tells him he's good to go, and Shane's like, hey, man, we're up 17-0, and I think Flacco could handle it. You're good. That's me kind of reading some tea leaves on the situation here. And, you know, the question is, Richardson said after the game, you know, I couldn't accelerate fully. Well, if you take away his movement and he's only a pocket passer, then what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, then it's Flacco, right?
Then it's preseason Anthony Richardson.
Sure. Yeah. And so I think that's the reality that you have to live in a little bit there. Again, as far as Richardson is concerned, from a examination of that play, I didn't want to lead off with this because, you know, by all accounts, it doesn't look like it's a super severe injury. We'll see, you know, exactly what the update is when he gets an MRI done. You know, should he have slid? You know, all of those questions are there. It's just so unfortunate that once again he is hit in the open field, a hit that I didn't think was menacing. I mean, it was I don't know, it was a hit to his hip and back area. It wasn't Isaiah Land hitting Justin Fields, or it wasn't, you know, did you see the hit Josh Allen took last night on the trick play?
Yeah.
I mean, like those hits are not the hits that Anthony Richardson gets hurt on. I mean, this is another defensive back injuring him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened last year. It was a bunch of defensive backs outside of the Harold Landry play, and that's what this was. So I did think, like, Shane Steichen, the play call of running him when he went back out there for the first play, it, like, reminded me of, like, I feel like we all had the friend in college who was, like, super studious and, like, in high school just, like, never drank, never did anything, like, perfect kid, and then they go to college for their first night away from their family, and they're peeing in the bushes outside of the dorm.
Oh, yeah.
On their first night there.
That was you, wasn't it?
It was not me. No. But, like, that was Shane Steichen, I almost thought, on Sunday. Like, he went from 0 to 180 almost, or 0 to 60, I should say, in that, especially with putting him back out there and calling the run. It's like, well, they're in base defense. Shane, remove your mad scientist hat for a second. Like, just because they're in base defense and your quarterback who's oft injured just got hurt 2 plays ago doesn't all of a sudden mean that you put him back out there and that's the play you run.
I hate to play this card, Kevin, but at the same time, it's on the player. Like, if it's a true RPO,
which,
and
again,
you know you just came out off with the injury, why not just hand it off regardless?
Yeah,
why are you even risking it?
And see, that's where I think you're putting way too much into a 21-year-old professional athlete. He doesn't want to say he's hurt. He doesn't want to admit that. Did you watch his emotion when he came off the field? He was pissed.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be labeled as a injury-prone player. He doesn't want to be, and again, a bust to me is a much different conversation than injury-prone. He doesn't want to be labeled as that. And I get it. I don't blame him. Like, why would anyone want to be labeled as that? So he wants to prove that he's healthy.
Yeah.
He wants to prove that no, I'm not hurt. I can do this. That's where Shane Steichen, you've got to protect your player. And again, that play to me, you can call it an RPO. It was a design quarterback run with the dressing of handing off to the running back. If you watch it, it is Will Fries pulling. It's Bernard Ryman. It's pretty much quarterback lead to the left is what that was. And TJ Watt obviously sitting right there. And, of course, he doesn't give it to Taylor, and he makes that play. So it just sucks that, like, here we are 8 games into his career, and he's finished 4 of them. Like, that just flat out sucks. And you can't get a true read on him as a player. Again, there are 2 questions with Richardson. Is he good or good enough, however you want to describe him? And then is he injury prone? And right now, the question of, can you run an effective offense and keep Anthony Richardson healthy? That question. Can you run an effective offense, comma, and keep Anthony Richardson healthy? That question on September 30th is an emphatic no. That's the answer. And it sucks because the first 3 games of the season, Richardson was healthy, right?
Is it more so of Anthony Richardson keeping Anthony Richardson healthy or the offense keeping Anthony Richardson healthy?
I think it's both. I mean, Richardson, if you look at the 6 injuries that he's had that have been taken out, he could have slid on 1, maybe 2 of them.
But even when you watch Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen, most of the time those guys are bracing for the contact, and it seems like Anthony's lowering his shoulder and trying to work through the contact versus bracing for it.
I think we're really nitpicking on some of that stuff. I think the answer to that question, can you run an effective offense and keep him healthy? It's a no right now. And again, the first 3 games, look at it. Was that an effective offense? Not at all. But you kept him healthy. And then on Sunday, you start to run him a little bit more. 3rd and 6, designed run up the middle. Wow, look at that. 2nd and 9. Oh my gosh, Richardson up the middle for 11. That was great. And you're moving the football the best you've moved it probably all season, really. But then he gets hurt. And that's the question you have with him right now. And that, again, is not even getting into him as a player. Did we see the good Anthony Richardson for the first quarter and a half? Or was that going to be a 300-yard game? Was that going to be some unbelievable day, or did we just see the snippets and the flashes of it? That's the dilemma that you have right now with him. Some would argue if you slide there, if he slides on that 2nd and 9, which again, that would have been a very awkward middle of the field slide. Okay, so he slides and makes it 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. Are you ripping him because he slid there? Where's the line on that? Where's the line? And no, you shouldn't slide here. You should slide here. And then you get to his body, and these are questions that I just feel so uneducated on. Of is he too big? Is he too much of a specimen? Is he so big that he has more of a hittable area? I mean, Lamar Jackson has largely survived, his NFL career. Obviously, he's been banged up a little bit, but he hasn't been as hurt as Anthony Richardson either. And then Josh Allen, you're wait, he's the same size. So how does he avoid all these hits? This is the mysterious stuff that I just feel like we don't know with him at all. I guess the question for week 5 is this: is he limited as a runner or with his movement? Again, he said he couldn't accelerate. Okay?
Push off, yeah.
If that is true in 6 days, don't you start Flacco?
I would assume so.
So I guess that's my thought for this week. Living in the week 5 bubble of the NFL. Big picture, it just it blows. Yeah, it stinks. I mean, you hate it. I mean, he seems like a great kid, and you hate
another missed opportunity potentially.
Sure. I mean, he needs road reps.
Yes.
Got, these road games coming up. So
especially against a hungry team like Jacksonville, they're 0-4, and they look totally inept right now on all 3 phases. They look better on Sunday against Houston, but they still, at the end of the day, finished with a loss.
So yeah, it's just it is brutal. It stinks. And the questions I'd rather answer are the watching him play football, and is he accurate enough, and how much can the big plays weigh in with the inaccuracies or the turnovers, and et cetera, et cetera. And again, largely I felt like they have kind of done I didn't think they ran him as much as I thought they would the first 3 weeks. The small sample size yesterday, how many snaps did he play yesterday? A dozen? I have no idea.
Give me a second, I'll tell you.
But that is the type of style offense I thought they would run more yesterday. A little bit more design run centric, a little bit more carry.
13.
So yeah, 3 runs in those 13 snaps, and I'd call 3 of them designed. I know, you might nitpick, and some you aren't the only one. I see other people out there calling it an RPO, but that's what I thought we'd see, and that's where to me you get in the fine line of limit, not eliminate, which there's so much gray area. I use that phrase quite a lot, and then I'm well, I mean, here I am saying a phrase that has plenty of gray area in it, and there's not a lot of black and white. So, to me, to summarize it all, Eddie, comes back to that question: can you run an effective offense with Anthony Richardson and keep him healthy? And right now, I don't know how anyone can answer that question without saying it's a no. Now, it's September 30th of his second NFL season. There's a long way to go, but right now, 8 games into it, that answer is pretty obvious for me.
I know people don't see the behind-the-scenes stuff when we're recording here in studio, but Kevin, you've got this game book that the NFL prints out after these games. It's the final stats and whatever, and you're always like writing as you ask your own question. It's like, do you go back and look at those?
Yeah, I do. They just like little plays I want to go back and watch. I mean, there's so much info in here that I just I probably try and read it like 2 or 3 times, just knowing that I missed something here. So, it's just little plays that I want to go back and watch on the TV copy. So far, I'm only about 2.5 quarters through the TV copy, so I want to make sure that I go back and watch the rest of it because I do think you learn a good amount from the TV copy. By the way, Adam Archuleta loved himself some Tanner Bortolini on that opening drive, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Bortolini. Do we have a question on that, or should I mention it here?
I don't think we have a question on that.
So the thing that impressed me about Bortolini, Eddie, was this. Ryan Kelly practiced Wednesday.
Yeah.
So it's not like Bortolini drilled all week to be the starting center. He got
2 days? Thursday and Friday?
I thought Bortolini had a really good drive. I don't think it was a perfect day for him by any means. I think if you go back and watch the tape, you'll see some of those hiccups. But still, for a 4th-round pick to look like that, you have to be very pleased with how he looked. And certainly you saw the athleticism there. And he is a guy that I think you could potentially be passing the torch to at some point. So, I thought a nice debut. And again, in general, just the O-line, what a job on TJ Watt. And I didn't think Hayward had the big sack late, but I didn't think there was too much there. So, yeah. I'm sorry, that was a long answer to that first question.
Let's pivot back to Matt Gay because that is where Bailey and Tyler have questions when watching the game. Messaging right now after his miss, it's Spencer Schrader time. We all know that kicking is as much mental as it is physical, and Matt is in his own head at the moment. As great as Adam Vinatieri was, the Colts had way too long of a leash on him for a few years. I hope that they don't have a long leash for Matt, considering his resume is nowhere near Vinatieri's. Should I say Vinatieri or Vinatieri?
I guess we have to rehash the Vinatieri thing for a second here. Again, that was an injury-related situation. He was missing short kicks because he made a Super Bowl winning kick in 01 and 03 or whenever those years were. I don't know how in 2019 that became as relevant as it was for the decision makers back in 2019. So, Matt Gay, you are correct. He does not have that sort of resume. But I guess the question I would ask is, what are you going to do that doesn't involve a $10 million dead cap hit?
Yeah.
I mean, again,
trade him.
I half jokingly, I go back to what my co-host Andy Sweeney was saying earlier today about, hey, you just throw him on IR with a mysterious injury. Like, I mean, he is dealing with stuff. I mean, he's popped up on the injury report, right? Twice this year.
Hip.
Quad and hernia. Well, it was originally a groin, right? And then they changed it to hernia, and he had surgery on it. So, like, yeah, I just...
Last year was the hip, right?
Right. Last year was the hip.
For a day.
I just don't see them doing any... Like, Shane Steichen, I know, is pissed, but he is still making the short ones.
Yes.
And I don't think they're going to do anything until he starts to... Now, devil's advocate would say, you're playing with fire right now. What happens? And didn't he hook one of the extra points? Like, one of the extra points almost missed. It looked like...
I'm not sure.
One of them did there. So, hell, if he would have missed that 33-yarder, like, to ice the game, really, or to potentially ice the game, that would have been a big one as well. So,
I mean, last week when he was warming up at halftime, I watched him miss 2 40-yard field goals, a 50-yard field goal, and a 56-yard field goal.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, boy.
Yeah, I know people have mentioned warm-ups with me before. So,
and those are all left, too. None of them are right.
It is a little bit of like, wow, you're asking for something by continuing to run him out there. Now, again, the only obvious answer to me, while not taking a huge cap hit, is putting him on IR, and then letting him heal whatever he needs to heal, and then obviously you could bump up Spencer Schrader for 2 more games, and then you'd have to make a permanent move with Schrader to the 53-man roster. So, yeah.
At what yardage would you be willing to entertain going for the field goal at this point if it's around 50 plus?
Well,
on fourth down? Would it have to be fourth down and 3 or less, fourth down and 4 or less? Where would you have to be?
I think there's a lot of down and distance stuff, score stuff that plays into it. Yeah, I mean, fourth and 5 or less is probably where I'd be right now. But again, a lot of it is score too.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm sitting there with if I can stretch it to 2 scores, or if I get, and again, I know right now it's not even a coin flip. I think we did the math at the start of the year. Matt Gay last year was he 50% north of 50, and the rest of the league was near 70. I think that's where we were at, and obviously this year it's much, much worse because he's 0% from that distance. So, yeah, man, it's a fair question, and I just don't think, with Vinatieri, you didn't have the contract at this level.
Mm-hmm.
All you had was just the Hollywood feel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you were weighing, which to me, it's okay.
His legacy, yeah.
Welcome to the NFL, yeah. His legacy, yeah, that's a good way to put it. With Matt Gay right now, you've got a huge financial commitment, so.
Yeah. Last year, Matt Gay was 8 of 13 on 50+, and I keep going back to this, Kevin, because it seems like the outlier, 4 for 4 at Baltimore from 50+. That means he was 4 of 9 from 50+ the rest of the year. I don't think that's cutting it.
No. Again, you are not getting anywhere near the return on investment.
2 questions left. James says, hey, Eddie, at what point do we truly start to question Anthony Richardson's ability to stay on the field? If this continues throughout the remainder of the year, do they have a real discussion about whether or not to keep him? Might be a bit premature, but it really seems like it unfortunately might be the case. Hopefully not. Thanks as always.
Yeah, I think, we had a caller call in today and be like, hey, I mean, if the Colts get a top 5 pick, they're going to have to make a decision. I'm like, okay, I mean, they're 2-2. I think my preseason prediction had them at 2-2 at this point and winning 10 games.
Same.
I mean, it's just all right, let's all just take a deep breath. But if we want to entertain these questions, you're going to need a season-ending injury to get to this point.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks do get hurt in the NFL. Now, quarterbacks don't, you could make the argument, I don't know if this stat is right or not. I mean, how many quarterbacks have started their NFL career and in 8 games they've only finished 4 of them? I mean, Richardson might be the only one. I mean, obviously I don't know my quarterback history like that, but again, this is rather unheard of, the amount of injuries. And if you're labeling, hey, you need to go draft a corner next year because of Juju Brents, well, I mean, right now you could make an argument that Richardson is just as injury prone as Juju Brents.
Yeah.
Juju Brents has played more snaps. He's played more games than Anthony Richardson. And, I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe it'd be nitpicking, but, from a contact standpoint, it's probably pretty similar just with the amount of tackles that, a player has to make during a game versus a quarterback getting hit, et cetera, et cetera. So, again, to answer James's question, I think you'd have to get into the season-ending variety. But, I'll go back to the conversation we had in March and April, Eddie. I was a fan then of spending a day 3 pick on a quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think given the nature of the position, given the nature of, and to be fair, most quarterbacks you're going to draft now and moving forward are going to have a leg element. I think the days of guys starting 200 straight games or whatever, the Mannings and
Eli Manning, yeah.
And
Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan.
Right. All those guys.
Tom Brady.
So those days are going to be gone. So I think in general, I now have changed my thought, and I would say draft a quarterback every year. I mean, right now you got 4. And I guess I don't think we're here with this week, Eddie, but I probably should mention Jason Bean is hurt right now.
He's still hurt?
Had a left ankle injury. I think he was in a boot last I saw him at practice. So if Richardson is not going to play this week, I don't think the Colts need to add a third quarterback, but would they want to?
I doubt it. I mean,
you just roll with Flacco and Ellinger in the game?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And again, so far, Ellinger has been the third QB. So that's just something to watch. Again, I don't think it's top of mind, but just something to keep an eye on. So, again, I think a season-ending injury would say, James, it's fair to question Richardson's ability to stay on the field. Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. But, to have the real discussion about whether or not to keep him, I don't think you're there. A season-ending, and again, financially, it doesn't go up until after 2023. So you're after 2026. Sorry. So you're gonna. I was thinking back to the year he was drafted. So you're gonna have to ride this out a little bit longer there. So, damn, I love not having to answer these questions through the first 3 weeks of the season, but here you are.
Final question is from Brian, and he states, getting your quarterback hurt may raise his completion percentage. It does minimize his growth. Shane was great last season, but this is a whole new season with playoff expectations. You don't bring back all the starters if it's not. Thankfully, the Colts had Justin Fields playing defense for them. I thought the refs really helped the Colts out this game. Thoughts through the first quarter of the season. Seems like Shane could cost the Colts moving forward against better teams. We all knew Pittsburgh hadn't played anyone yet, so the record was like Shane. Shaky at best. What do you say?
Yeah, I thought largely Shane had a very good day yesterday. I get that over 60 minutes of football, there's always things to nitpick, and did he get a hair greedy late in the first half, or the 3rd and 15 pass there late, I didn't think was necessary.
Same.
Like that to me was kind of a run moment, but
Adam Archuleta was shocked. He was like, "What are you doing here? You got to make him use that final timeout."
I still haven't got to that part of the game. Yeah, that was surprising to me. But, I'll go back to what I said earlier. 57 points against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the last 2 meetings with Minshew and Flacco. Like, you can't ignore that either. Now, as far as the Colts getting, I don't know, was the officiating really that one-sided? I didn't. Am I missing something? I think the Isaiah Land rule is just idiotic. But am I shocked they called that a flag? No. We watch these NFL officiating videos every training camp, and that play is like, that's what they now call. And I think it's stupid. I thought Sterator had a pretty good description of it. He was too quick to Fields. His momentum was too much. And in a crowded pocket, I think it's different than out in the open field.
I was about to say, if you rewatch it again, you can see, I don't know who was in as pass protection for the back, but the back comes in, and as Isaiah Land's tackling him, he runs into the hip of that Steelers player, and that's what launches him up. It's not the hit itself. It was more so his teammate clipping Fields underneath the hip that allowed Land to go over the top like the way it did.
I'm like, where's he going to go? That one really bothered me. But again, I don't blame the officiating crew. I blame the letter of the law.
And then you have the Minka Fitzpatrick one, I think, later.
That one I don't love either. I actually thought Minka made a decent play on it. And I'm just used to this. I guess I just kind of am used to it. From a break standpoint, I will say again, what the Colts are getting right now, their fumble luck is crazy. Now, the errant snap is interesting, and I guess I'll get to this now here, Eddie.
Okay.
Justin Fields' quote after the game, let me see if I can pull this up. This is what I've been clamoring for with the Colts, is more pre-snap disguise. In general, more of that. Okay, Fields' quote on the final play. Now, some of this is Pittsburgh dealing with backup offensive linemen, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But Fields says this, my fault. We're on that first leg kick, and center Zach Frazier was IDing and stuff. I felt the DBs rotating and changing the back-end picture. So he was IDing stuff, telling the O-line where to go. I was just trying to get that final picture before the snap came. So at the end of the day, it was on the first leg kick. So after I kicked my leg, I got to be ready for the ball no matter when it's going to come or not, end quote. I felt the DBs rotating and changing the back-end picture. So now he's waiting and trying to get more of an ideal read on it. That's what you want to see. And if you go back and watch it, Blackman is kind of motioning over to Jalen Jones, and Nick Cross is kind of now coming down to the box. He's playing a little bit more in the slot. Like, that's the stuff you want. You're now making the quarterback think, and now you've got backup offensive linemen that are panicking, and all of a sudden Justin Fields is a leg kick here, and next thing you know, chaos ensues. Create more of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to see. And to be fair to Gus Bradley, they have actually blitzed much higher rate than he has normally done.
Yeah.
I'll probably need to go back and look at those Gus numbers now that we're kind of a quarter into the season. But that is something to point out as well.
Jeremy Fowler reporting that starting guard James Daniels for the Steelers tore his Achilles in the loss yesterday to the Colts. And then some sad news this morning here. Shams Charania and Chris Haynes, two NBA reporters, are reporting that Dikembe Mutombo has passed away at the age of 58 due to brain cancer.
Damn, what a legend.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I hate that. God, 58. Boy, you're going to talk about someone that has done so much for the game globally.
Oh, yeah.
And what a great play. I feel like at times we forget just like how great of a player he was.
Oh, yeah. Certainly.
Boy, gosh, how many times I wagged my finger at my brother when I'd block his shots. Thanks to him as well. Oh, man. I hate hearing that news.
You got to do it to Max now, right?
Well, I think we're a long ways away. I don't know. I think
you don't start him young already, Kevin? Come on now.
What's the age where like you actually start playing them for real?
Oh, well, that's a good question.
You know, I know that's kind of that's a little awkward. And my pride too, Eddie. I should mention that. You know.
Oh yeah, you're a big pride guy, aren't you?
I am indeed. All right, Colts Jags. You surprised to see Jags favored?
Nope.
Jags favored by 2.5.
It's a road game for the Colts, and they haven't won down there since when?
2014.
So Shane Steichen will talk today. We'll probably hopefully get a little more clarity on the Jonathan Taylor ankle situation, Anthony Richardson's hip, and then the coordinators will talk on Tuesday afternoon, and then we will next talk to you on Wednesday afternoon/evening.
Biggest quarter of the season. This is the one that you need 3-1. You need 3-1 out of. You need the divisional wins. You've already lost one divisional home game. You need it. Boy, Houston snuck out of there yesterday. The big comeback over Jacksonville. So what a big month of October upcoming. Eddie Garrison, thank you as always. Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen signing off. We'll talk to you Wednesday.